95% of people fail to lose their belly, but not you, because you're here. And I'm going to show you the common pitfalls of that 95% and what to do instead. Okay, so number one, they're not in a calorie deficit. They're not actually in a calorie deficit. And this card is going to represent a number of things. So it says hormones and insulin. People blame their insulin spikes, eating too much fruit or whatever. I've never met a person that's gotten fat off fruit. If you looked at their diet, I highly doubt they're just eating too much fruit. Um, and so what and I just use that as an example. Like there's so many things you could fill in. I want that to empower you. I don't want to say, a lot of people get like triggered whenever I'm like, it's not your hormones. It's not, your insulin spikes. It's you. And I know that can kind of like hurt a little bit. It's your actions. It puts the ball back in your court. Sometimes that stings because it's like, oh, well, I have work to do. But I want to flip that for you. And I want you to be excited. Like, I can do work. I'm not going to be like, I can work hard and I can succeed at this. And it's not actually, I'm going to teach you how to make it like easier. It's not like a bunch of hard work and that's all it is. But what I'm saying is it puts the power back in your hands. If you do these things, you will succeed. You don't have to blame hormones and just be stuck with your situation. You really can succeed. So a couple of things on this, on like how to make sure you're actually in a calorie deficit. And they kind of go hand in hand. I'm just going to put them both up. Log your food and track all of it. So let's talk about these. So to make sure you're in a calorie deficit, a lot of times the biggest culprit is that a person is not tracking their food. And you don't have to do this forever. Actually, it's always been something I've wanted to do, to like log for a while. I log all the time, every day. But, to log for a while and then stop logging, see what happens to my weight, or, have a client do this, see what happens to their weight, whatever. And, whoever wants to do it. And, if you're like, well, now I'm not losing weight, or now I'm gaining weight, or whatever, if it's going against your goals, start logging your food and eat the same way you would have been eating. Were you accurate? That's something I've always been curious on. But there's studies that show that we are just numerously, that's not what I'm going for, that we are massively inaccurate whenever we are gauging our food. We even, there's studies that have people eating like set things. They're told what they're eating and they will still, underreport. I cannot tell you how many times people have told me that they probably eat 600, 800 calories, especially whenever I hear probably. I know they don't actually know. They just feel like they're not eating a whole lot. And so the track all of it portion is where a lot of times whenever a person feels like they're not eating a whole lot, it's where it goes wrong. So it's things like condiments, oil, especially. If a person has, and I understand it's like it's for cooking. Well, it still counts as calories. So like if you put oil on the pan, you cook some chicken, and then you put some more oil in there so that the noodles don't burn that you're adding next. And hey, you're using noodles, so those are higher in calories as well. And then you put some oil on for seasoning. At that point, you've probably put 600, 800 calories of oil in your pasta dish. It's shocking. Measure it out. It's shocking how little oil it takes to reach your calories. Same thing's true for peanut butter, avocados, anything that is a really high fat source. It doesn't take a whole lot to reach your calories. So track everything. Do this for like 2 weeks and see, am I within a reasonable calorie limit? Look up. This isn't anywhere on the sheet, but kind of like a bonus tip. Look up your TDEE, your total daily energy expenditure, and just see if you're ballparking whenever you're logging your food. If you're close to that, you're going to need a food scale. That's for sure. I would try to measure everything you possibly can. I need to do like a full deep dive on food logging. I know it would be really helpful for people. But for now, the best tip I can give you is to start looking at the grams that are right to the side of I don't know what kind of measurement system it's called, but cups, tablespoons, teaspoons. Right to the right of that is almost always a parentheses, and then it'll say grams. So a serving of peanut butter, I think, is 32 grams. A serving of PB Fit, I know, well, maybe not PB Fit, but the powdered peanut butter from Walmart is 12 grams. And so you don't accidentally get it wrong. Now, with things that aren't super high in fat, not as big of a deal, but I'm telling you, log your food. It's going to help so much. All right, so number 2 is not eating enough protein. This is not a major pitfall. It's not nearly as big as number 5 or number. The other 3, 4, and 5 are bigger than this, but it's still something that I wanted to bring up. So not eating enough food, not eating enough protein. So first is TEF, thermogenic effect of food, and fullness. So eating more protein, you will burn more calories just simply eating more protein. It takes more energy I think it's like somewhere close to 30%. So for every 100 calories you take in of protein, you're actually only able to use 70 calories of those. And so it'll literally increase your calorie burn, but also like without doing anything. But also it'll make you feel more full. So it's kind of a double whammy. You're burning more calories, but you're also eating less. And so it puts you in a calorie deficit. So that, I wanted to separate that from the not in a calorie deficit part. Eating more protein will help you be in a calorie deficit. Number two, very important, is it'll keep your muscle. We are going to talk more about this on multiple points in like different ways, but keeping your muscle is so important. It's going to keep your metabolism up. And I mean, I promise, some people, they think they don't. I don't understand why, but I promise if you look up anyone who is just skinny, you probably don't want to just be skinny. You probably want some shape to you. You probably want some cool arms. You probably want, a cool back. Probably want some, meat on your legs. You don't just want twigs for legs. People aren't generally attracted to that. Not that that's like your primary reason for working out, but for a lot of you, it might be totally cool. For me, it was for many years as well. But yeah, so you keep your muscle. That is going to be so important. Now, how do you do this? Low fat is like my favorite way. There's multiple ways of like you can get your protein through higher fat sources, but low fat meat and low fat dairy. By far, it is my easiest, way. So, non-fat Greek yogurt. It's just for the amount of calories you're getting so much protein because there's not a whole lot of fat in the way, and there's not a lot of carbs. Um, Obviously, 97% lean ground turkey is going to like be almost pure protein. Not literally, but it's a lot of protein. Now that could come out a little dry, so 93% ground turkey. If you're doing ground beef, try to get the leaner varieties of ground beef. 95%. Yes, it gets a little more pricey, but it's going to be worth it for your diet. Chicken is obviously the go-to, and pound for pound, pun not intended. Was that a pun? I don't know. Pound for pound, chicken is the cheapest protein source that I know of. I think, believe it or not, whey protein, like just the stuff you mix with shakes, is actually the cheapest per gram of protein. But in terms of meat, chicken is by far, like ground turkey here is like 6 something a pound, whereas chicken, I have an awesome free resource for you that is called the 30-Day Shape Up Challenge. It's 30 days of 4 habits that I run my clients through that is going to help you get a great start to your fat loss journey. And there's a bonus 5th habit in case you fall off the wagon at all. All my clients love it and it's free. So just scan this QR code here or click the link in the description and I'll send that straight to your email. Which is just as lean as the 97% ground turkey, like a chicken breast, is like $2.39 a pound or something like that. So it's massive savings. After trimming it, maybe it's like $3.50 a pound, but it's still huge savings. And bonus tip again, this I just thought of this. Chicken breast. I know people are gonna write in the comments how much you hate me. I get it. Okay, chicken thighs, not your best friend. They're not like your worst enemy, but chicken breast, season it up, cook it right, make sure it doesn't overcook. Whenever I'm grilling, I'm checking the temperature often because I want it to be 165. Like I'll pull it off like 164, if I can. So don't overcook them. And I'm telling you, it comes out delicious. You don't need chicken thighs. I wish I had the data right in front of me. I should have wrote this down. I just didn't plan on talking about this. Chicken thighs have, a good amount of protein, but not as good as chicken breast because there's more fat. So it kind of fits in with that low fat thing. Now, I'm not saying like low fat is the way to go for a diet either. You might like a little bit more fat. I'm adding a lot of my fat back in if I need it by the end of the day with almonds and olive oil. But if you tend to eat really low carb and you just really like low carb, then that could do it too. I'm just telling you my favorite way of doing it. Okay, so number 3, only cardio or weight. That is, the third reason that 95% fail. Especially with men, I find like men tend to only do weights. I'm not saying by nearly everyone, but I'm just saying the tendency is men only do weights and women only do cardio. Both lead down a path of more difficult weight loss. So, let's my things don't really talk about this. Let's talk real quick about why you need cardio and weights. So first, weights are going to help you keep your muscle. That's so important on a fat loss diet. If you lose significant weight, if you lose anything like 20 pounds, 10 pounds even, you're going to be losing muscle. You want to keep as much of it as possible. Otherwise your basal metabolic rate is going your metabolism, your metabolism is just going to tank. And by the end, you're going to either have to eat like a bird or keep suffering well, eat like a bird and keep suffering, or you're going to have to increase your caloric expenditure. It's going to be bad. That's why a lot of people regain. So please lift weights. It's very important. Lift with intensity. And how often should you lift here? That's what this card is: 2 to 3 times per week. Now you totally could uh, lift more. I lift more. I'm a personal trainer though, so I lift 6 days a week because I just love it. But if you like it, you could totally lift more. I this card can be summarized in you should hit your entire body 2 to 3 times per week on average for each muscle group. So, a person could do a total body program twice a week. That would check that box. A person could do upper body on Monday and lower body on Tuesday, and then upper body on Thursday and lower body on Friday. That's sometimes what I do. I do 6 days a week, but if I can't work out 6 days that week, then I'll do that. Upper lower split is what that's called. That's still hitting the body twice a week, the total body, because you got 2 days where now my total body's hit, and then you got these 2 days over here. So now we have, total body twice a week. I don't know why I'm doing that with my hands. You could do push pull legs. So upper body push, that's your chest mainly and other muscle groups. Upper body pull, that's your back, and then legs, quads and hamstrings. And throw in shoulders. There's so many. That's not what this video is about, but you can do push pull legs Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then again Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That's working out 6 times a week, but still only hitting the body twice a week, total body twice a week. So 2 to 3 times a week for weights. If you're doing total body, I totally would encourage 3 days a week if you can. 3 to 5 days a week of cardio. Now you will hear this. Now this is more from like the girls who only do cardio. There's like an entire segment of people on Instagram that their entire business is built around, girls, stop doing cardio. It's costing you all of your progress. That's not true. That's just not true. Doing less cardio, I promise you, is not going to lead you to doing better in your weight loss. Now, what could happen, number one, look at those people that are saying that. They're typically shredded out of their mind. And it's their job to look good for Instagram. I bet they're doing cardio, and if they're not, then they're just at least really active, and they kind of have been doing this for a while. They're probably 23 years old. Just take into consideration it's a different person that's telling an average guy with 4 kids and a desk job that he needs to stop doing cardio, or I guess they're talking to women, but you get what I'm saying. So 5 days of cardio if possible. Now you can lift and do cardio on the same day. That's totally fine. Just try to get 5 days if possible, or at least 3 days. 3 days of cardio. 150 minutes per week is what the American Heart Association recommends. I could have the association wrong, but there's a governing body in the United States that says 150 minutes of cardio per week, moderate intensity. That's just like walking on a slight uphill incline treadmill. 3 to 5% incline at 3 miles an hour or something. That'll get you what you need. And I promise, I want to go back to that thing about cardio. Number one, look at the person saying it. That's a big deal. Like, they are very active personal trainers. It is their job to look good, all that stuff. They've been doing it for a long time. They probably have their diet really in check. But also, why would a person, because there is stories of people who do a bunch of cardio and then they stop doing a bunch of cardio. Now they are losing weight. Number one, I think you have to look at their other lifestyle choices. I bet they stumbled upon someone who gave them belief, who said stop doing cardio, and they started watching their diet a little better. Your diet is the main thing that's going to lead to weight loss anyway. So they probably started watching their diet a little better. Also, yes, they were lifting and building muscle, and therefore their basal metabolic rate, or their metabolism, was increased a little bit. The afterburn effect of weightlifting hasn't been shown in research to be anything significant, so that's not it. They might quote that as a reason. But also, they probably, because they were doing so much cardio, were they tracking their food? Were they accidentally overeating? Were they tracking it accurately? If they were doing an hour of cardio a day, but eating, and at the end of the day, they're just so exhausted, they're kind of binging food. Were they on their plan as much as they are now? Is it because they're less stressed and lifting for 30 minutes is much more enjoyable than doing an hour of cardio every single day? That has led them to feel like their plan is going to succeed, and therefore they're sticking with it. There's so many factors, but I promise you, I assure you, look into the research. No one, if you take 2 groups of people and one does less cardio and one does more, the less cardio never loses more weight, if all else being equal. I already talked about this, but both. You must do both. You know what? I shouldn't say that. It is so helpful. I want to say must, but you don't have to do both. You can skip out on cardio. I totally would not recommend it. You just have to eat a lot less. You can skip out on lifting. I wouldn't recommend it. You have to know that you're going to lose your muscle. You're probably not going to have great shape at the end. You're probably going to end up being skinny fat, and you're probably going to end up gaining the weight back. So you almost must do both. But yeah. Okay, so number 4. Moving on. They're not patient enough. Now, this one's big, and I know it's not sexy. You probably already clicked off the video. If you're still here, congratulations. Not patient enough. I promise you, if you are patient enough, you are going to win. First off, there are ups and downs. Man, I can't grab this card. There are ups and downs on your weigh-ins. So don't be defeated if you feel like you're doing everything right and it's not going the way that you feel like it should be going. You know, your weight's either flat or, heaven forbid, it went up. Number 1, I don't think it actually went up. It's just a water weight spike, or stress or lack of sleep or fill in the blank, or you ate something not so great, but it didn't turn into fat. It just, you're holding on to water weight, fried food especially. Lots of carbs, sodium. If you go out to eat, they tend to put a lot of sodium in their food. So all those things are going to hold on to water. So it's just water weight. I promise you. It is about the pattern of your weigh-in. So don't be defeated by a high weigh-in. You have to be patient enough to see the pattern of weigh-ins. If the pattern is down, you're winning. It doesn't matter if it's up or down. I had an idea on that, but not patient enough, up and down weigh-ins, who knows? Number 2, seasons of life. If you're having a kid or whatever, if you have a bunch of kids at home, I mean, it's going to be harder. And we have to understand that, you have to give yourself a little bit more patience. You have to give yourself a little bit more time. This is what I was going to say, and it kind of relates to this. I have never, not once, ever seen a person day in, day out, not literally every day, but, consistently in the gym who just remains overweight their entire life. It might take them years, but they're going to get there. And those years would have passed anyway. You can do this. Stick with it. And understand the seasons of life. Literally, a season. I didn't mean for that. I didn't intend on that. Is coming up. It's Christmas is coming up. New Year's is coming up. All that stuff. It's hard to lose weight during that time. Maybe you consider just maintaining weight, building muscle right now, doing all this cardio and all this stuff, doing everything I'm saying, but just letting the scale do whatever it wants to do. And then imagine hitting the ground running in January. But also, it is totally possible to slowly lose weight. Maybe you understand that you don't want to lose 15 pounds this month, but hey, I could easily lose 6, and then the next month, the next month, the next month. And then you're starting off by January. What would that be? You're starting off roughly 20 pounds down instead of making up, or restarting. You're picking up right where you left off. So that's awesome. And then build the skill. Every time that you go out and you are like, man, I just wasn't prepared. I just was too hungry. And so I overate. That's a chance to learn. And get better at this. Every time that you're looking up a new recipe, that you see a recipe on Instagram, you save it and you make it. You're getting better at this. Every time you food log, you're getting better at this. And I promise, if I was to teach you right now, and I don't know how to change brakes, it's just my favorite analogy to use for some reason. If I was to teach you how to change brakes, you probably would be miserable at it the first time. Let me know in the comments if you're like, nah, I change brakes for a living. But you probably would be miserable at it the first time, the second time, the 17th time. But the 368th time, you'd be pretty good. The 5,000th time, you would be an expert. You'd have your own brake shop, and you would be crushing it, making millions. Just kidding. But maybe you would. But either way, the analogy stands that I promise is the skill that you're going to build up. And you got this, man. Just don't give up. You got it. Okay, number 5. And this is so important, guys. If you stuck here at the beginning, I know I gave a really weird, listen to number 5. And I hate that cliche stuff when people are like, stay to the end. But I really was writing these as I was thinking of them. And number 5 just happened to be, I think, the number one reason 95% of people fail. Think about it. I'll tell you what it is. You lose weight too fast. Oh, I know it sounds corny. Hold on. Give me a second. So how many people do you know that have lost weight? It's actually really easy to lose weight. How many people do you know that have lost weight, significant weight, and kept it off? So few. Why do they do that? Why is there weight regain? I think this is the number one thing, is they lose too fast. Number 1 of this is they lose muscle. I know we've kind of been dabbling around that this whole time, but if you lose muscle by the end, you don't have a metabolism left to sustain you. I mean, you do. I guess that's hyperbole. But instead of your basal metabolic rate being, 1700, your BMR is 1100 calories. And now you have to eat, what was that, 600 calories less just to maintain what you would have had to eat 600 calories more to maintain, So like you're just having to eat so little. And most people can't do that forever. And so they end up gaining the weight back because they've costed themselves their metabolism. This time they just have less muscle. Now it's even harder. It's a cycle of losing. Typically, I want to give you encouragement on that though. If in the past you have lost weight and you're like, man, I probably lost muscle because I had to either eat like a bird or I gained it all back. Don't worry. You didn't lose all that muscle and permanently keep that muscle off. Typically, when a person resumes their life, they end up getting all that muscle back because that's the muscle that their life, gave them. So you will end up. It's not like you permanently lose the muscle. You might permanently lose some of it though, but not nearly all of it. Okay, and then this is a huge one: diet fatigue. And I'll talk about the 8 to 12 weeks in a second. But diet fatigue. So if you were dieting and you're like, I'm going to diet hard for this entire year, I'm going to lose 100 and something pounds. It's so hard at like week 30 to keep going. You got, hormones, ghrelin and leptin, they're all everywhere. You got one telling you to eat more. You got one telling you to, oh my gosh, you got one, you're trying to eat more and you're not burning as many calories. All these things are totally starting to conflict with your natural processes of trying to live life. It's just getting in the way. If you feel like, man, it's just impossible, I have to eat, that's probably, I don't like blaming hormones at the very beginning. Ironically, I didn't even put this together. I put in quotes like hormones. But if you're 30 weeks into a diet or 20 weeks into a diet and you're like, this is getting so hard, it probably is your hormones. Cortisol is probably higher because you've been in a deficit so long. Your testosterone's probably dropped. Everything is now working against you. 8 to 12 weeks, and you are not going to like this. But 8 to 12 weeks is what I would recommend you do for a diet before you give yourself a diet break of roughly half the time that you were on the diet. And I promise you, you will be so far ahead. If you lose 1 pound a week, let's take the extreme example. I'm looking at the 8 to 12 weeks. Let's take an extreme example. And let's say that you lost, actually, I don't know if I'm going to need a marker, but just in case. Let's say that you lost for 8 weeks, you lost a pound a week. That would be 8 pounds, obviously, for 8 weeks. And then let's say you took 4 weeks of losing 0 pounds. And then, so 4 weeks of 0 pounds. And then you lost another 8 pounds in 8 weeks. And then 0 and 4, and you continued that. 8, 16, 32. 40. So roughly you could go through like 3 of those cycles. By the end of a year, by the end of a year, you'd probably be roughly 30 pounds down. And you might be like, oh my gosh, I can lose so much more than that. Yes. And I'm not saying that you can't get away with it, but are you the exception or are you probably more likely the rule that if you lose too fast, you're going to end up regaining it, probably a little bit more fat and this time a little bit less muscle. And you're going to continue this cycle. And if you give yourself the chance to lose 8 pounds in 8 weeks, or it could be more like 12 pounds in 8 weeks, that's fine too. If you have more weight to lose, especially, it can be a little higher. And at first, it can totally be a lot more because, it's going to be water and glycogen as well. But let's say, in general, you lose, we'll say 10 pounds every 8 weeks. You could be 40 pounds down, roughly, by the end of a year, and you will have kept it off. And let's say it's even 30 pounds down by the end of a year, 32 pounds down or whatever, and you keep it off and you do that for 2 years. Do you have much more than 64 pounds to lose? In 2 years, you're permanently, happily not suffering, and you have more muscle than ever because you've been doing all the lifting and all the. What a great place to be. 2 years are going to pass no matter what. Consider your journey taking 2 years. And I want to encourage you with this. This video is getting long, so I'm gonna be done soon. I really want to encourage you that the end is not where you start to find happiness. Let's say that you have 200 pounds to lose. I promise you're going to be feeling pretty sexy when you lose like 50 pounds. You're going to be feeling good at like 20 pounds lost. You're in the momentum. Then you're going to have to get new clothes at like 35 pounds. And then you're going to have to get more new clothes at like 50 pounds. You're going to be feeling like attractive, and then you're going to be feeling pretty good, like really good at 75 pounds. Like it doesn't take 200 pounds, and most of you probably don't have 200 pounds to lose. If you do, don't worry. Your journey is just longer and more fun. And I know that's kind of like not true, but kind of is true. If you only have 70 pounds to lose, at 30 pounds lost, you're like, my gosh, look at me. At 40 pounds lost, you have to go get some new clothes. It's fun. I'm telling you, enjoy the journey. You don't have to wait the entire time. So that is all. Go get it.